Okay, so my name is Sarah Sherman, and I want to thank you for having me here to present to you today. Today, we're going to talk about relationships, respect, and how you can get help now that you're living in Canada. I am the founder of We're Here For You Canada, and we're a charity and nonprofit. We're based in New Brunswick, but we're branching out across Canada. And what we do, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, is we provide support to survivors of violence. So when anybody has had an act of intimate partner, family, domestic violence, sexual violence, or anything that we call intentional and gender-based violence, they can go see the nurse at the hospital. And then the nurse in New Brunswick or across the province, they'll support them, they'll help them and treat them. They'll explain what your options are, and we'll talk more about this later, and that you do not need to report to police unless you want to. And they will also provide you with our comfort kits, new clothing, and cultural supports after you're finished. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And I'm going to be a little thrown off because I've lost my presenter notes. I'm not quite sure. Give me 1 second to see if that pulls it up. No, it doesn't. We're just going to go with it. Okay, so I always like to do a land acknowledgement, and I'm not going to read this out because it's quite long. It's there for anyone who wants to read it. But my purpose in the land acknowledgement is understanding that I'm a settler in Canada. The first people are the Indigenous people who were here before us. This is their land. And we always like to be conscious of how we're using the land, of how we're working with Indigenous people, and how we're supporting survivors. And as an ally of Indigenous people, it's really important to me to not say this is what you need to do, but to ask how can we help and support you. And this applies across to all of the newcomers to Canada as well. And as you come to Canada and you adjust and you understand the changes in the environment, in the culture and traditions and laws, how can we help make this a better experience for you and more welcoming to Canada? And I know that many of you understand that because you are working with the Multicultural Association, and that is really a strong piece of what they do. And I really admire that. And thank you for reaching out and for being the helpers in that community, because we want to have you here and we want it to be a positive experience for you. And so when I talk about land acknowledgement, I'm also addressing all people who live here and how we can be most supportive and helpful to each other. So today we're going to talk about healthy relationships, what are red and green flags, communication, and how to get help. And as part of that, I'm going to share a little bit about myself and why this is important to me. I don't intend to get graphic or too much detail, but if at any time you need to leave because it's not comfortable for you, or it's upsetting, or maybe it triggers some thoughts or memories for you, or something that you're currently going through, please reach out to one of the people that you work with at the Multicultural Center. Let them know why you left. Let them know that this is something that you need to talk about further with them privately, or reach out to me after. And you can always find me. I'm really easy to find. We're here for you Canada.ca is our website. And my email is hello@we'rehereforyoucanada.ca. So although we're going to be talking about these topics, we won't get too deeply into it. But the reason that I feel that it's important to talk about healthy relationships and red flags and green flags and healthy communication is because I lived in an environment for 18 years where I wasn't safe. I wasn't in a healthy relationship. and I didn't know how to ask for help. Now, I'm from here. I was born and raised in Canada. I haven't traveled for far, and I didn't understand that I was living through many levels of violence. Because often we just think about the physical violence and we just think about, maybe he hit me or she hit me. It doesn't happen all of the time, but there's so many levels to it. So I am just projecting what I think this might be like for you, and anybody feel free to ask me questions at any time. But I know how hard it was being from here and living here and born and raised to ask for help. So I can only imagine how starting over in a new country, and the differences in culture and awareness and what is acceptable and isn't acceptable might be hard to understand. And so that's why I'm reaching out today, not to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong, but to explain my experience, what I've learned, and that there is help in Canada. And if you're not living in a relationship or an experience where you feel safe, that you can get help. So new beginnings can feel exciting and overwhelming. I'm not from New Brunswick either. I moved here 16 years ago from Vancouver Island in BC. Now it's still in Canada, but it's 6,000 kilometers away. I didn't know anybody. I had no family and no support system, except for my husband and my 2 children. And I moved here to start over because I had lived through a very public, violent situation. And so I can only imagine, because I felt a culture shock in New Brunswick. It was different to me. People are very kind here, but it also was closed. I didn't feel like I was welcome in a lot of circles because I was come from away, which you might have heard that term. And I was never really going to belong here. And so it was really hard for me as a Canadian moving here to adapt to living here. So when you're moving here from another country and another culture, and maybe you moved here because you wanted to come to Canada, or maybe you moved here because you had to leave your country because it wasn't safe, and all of those experiences and emotions that you have inside you, and then you come to a brand new place. And I understand that a little bit. So there's different cultural norms around relationships. And for me, even from Vancouver Island to New Brunswick, we experienced a bit of that. Now, the laws and the rights in Canada were the same for me as they were in BC, but we did have an experience 10 years ago, and I'm allowed to share these experiences because my children have given me permission to. But my child had been sexually assaulted by a neighbor, and we reported it to the police. And the reaction from the community was really hard for me to understand. A lot of people said, well, why did you ever let her go there? Well, nobody told me it wasn't an okay place for her to be. Why did you report him? We don't talk about those kind of things. I disagreed with that. I think that we have to talk about it and we have to report to change to make our kids and our families safer. And so
Sarah,
I have a
I'm
little bit of that experience.
so sorry to interrupt. Sarah,
That's
I'm so
okay.
sorry. There's people that are asking for more time to interpret and
Oh, okay.
pauses
Okay.
between chunks of information. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Sorry. I get rolling and it's sometimes hard. Okay. Um, so the laws and rights might be different. For me in Canada, they were the same, but the cultural expectations locally were different. And so that was hard for me to understand. So I imagine coming from another country, it's even harder, especially when you haven't come here because you wanted to leave your country. And I think a lot of people in Canada and in New Brunswick don't fully grasp that fact. So I wanted to acknowledge that I understand that it makes it harder. And so that's why we're talking about these things today. I want to let you know that you're not alone in figuring things out. And that's why we're here to talk to you. So my key message to you today is it's okay to ask questions. You're in a new country and learn as you go, because what you knew and what was okay might have different support. It may be different in this country. So what is a healthy relationship? I talk about this a lot because I did live in a domestic violent relationship for 18 years. I knew it wasn't a healthy relationship. I just didn't understand that because I wasn't being abused or hit all the time, that there's lots of other levels of violence in a relationship. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. A healthy relationship is built on respect and trust and honesty. So when you have that, you feel safe emotionally and physically, you're supported. When you don't have that, maybe you're living in uncertainty or afraid, or a term we say is walking on eggshells, which basically means that you're always worried about what you say or do or how it's taken by your partner or the other people in your life. We use a term called intimate partner violence, which generally refers to the person you're in a relationship with. It can, however, mean the other people in your immediate family and life. And often there's multi-generations living in a home. And so intimate partner violence can be abused by other family members, a parent, an in-law, even a child. And so we want to help express how you can get help and what kind of support and what you should look for in a healthy relationship. One of the things is open and honest communication. And so I talk to youth a lot. And when I talk about good communication, one of the ways I express that to them is, how does it feel when your friends talk to you? When your friends talk to you and they're mean or critical or make you feel bad about yourself or how you look, is that a communication that makes that you somebody that you want to stay with? Is that somebody that you want to be friends with? And I think when we're talking to youth, if we can talk about friendships and what feels good in that and how to talk in a safe way to somebody, to say, I don't like how you talk to me. I don't like what happened. If that person's not open or they're abusive to you, it's easier to stop that friendship. But when we learn those skills early or we teach them to our children, I didn't know them. And I tried to teach it better to my children. But when we learn those things, we're more likely to understand later when we're in an intimate partner or a love relationship what isn't okay. So a relationship should be equal. No person should have power over the other person. You should both have the right to make decisions in your family and in your life and in your future. And if you don't have those things, you have to think about, is this right for me? Of course, it's easier before you get married, but you can also change those things after marriage. You want somebody who supports your goals, your identity, and your culture. And if you don't have those things, maybe that's not the right person for you. So we call those things green flags. Those are healthy signs in relationships. A green flag would be Green means go. So a green flag would be somebody who listens without judgment. They don't have to agree with you, but they don't judge you. They listen. You can talk about your feelings. They respect your boundaries. If they want you to do something that you don't want to do, they respect that. Those are green flags. They take responsibility for their actions. So in a relationship that's healthy, if the person does something that's not okay and they accept responsibility, that's a positive thing. Person in a healthy relationship understands that communicating clearly and calmly is the key point there, is how we can work through things and resolve them together. The bottom line is, if you feel valued and heard and safe, that's a green flag. Also, you'll have to let me, I can't see any time on my screen, so I don't know what time it is. So you'll have to tell me when I'm getting close to the end. One of our key messaging is real men respect and stand up for women. This is across cultures and the world. It's something we have to change. We have to change the world where men aren't supporting women. And so part of ending gender-based violence, which is typically violence against women, and it can work in both directions, but mostly it's women that suffer. Part of changing this is helping men be better men so that they can have healthy relationships and they can support their wives and their children. And so one of our messages are real men respect and stand up for women. Red flags. So these are the warning signs. Red means stop, right? So if there's controlling behavior, and again, these are things that I lived through and I didn't understand them as signs of violence. So when you live with somebody who isolates you and only lets you see who they want you to see, or determines what you're going to wear, how you wear your hair, whether you wear makeup or cover your face, any of those things, if you want to do those things, it's okay. But if someone is forcing you to do it, those are red flags. Isolation from family and friends wasn't something that I understood, but my world got smaller and smaller, and the people in it were less and less. And as you become isolated, you aren't seeing what you're missing. You're just seeing the control that's holding you. And you start to believe all of the things that are being said to you. Somebody who's jealous or constantly checking your phone or your social media or your emails, people who put an air tag on you to track where you are, who show up to where you don't belong or where they don't belong, that they're tracking you. Those people are intimidating you. Those are threats, and you have fear. And so those are all red signs, red flags. When you're blamed for everything and you start to believe that, those are all signs of an unhealthy relationship. But when you're in it, you can't see it. I didn't see those things, and I just stopped talking to people, and I talked to less and less people. So red flags are often small, and they start slowly over time. Most cases, the person isn't violent or abusive immediately. They have to gain our trust. And so we start to believe what they're telling us. Some of the early signs of abuse could be checking your messages without permission, gaslighting you, making you doubt yourself. We're going to talk more about gaslighting in a minute because it's a term not everybody understands. Like I said, isolating you from people you care about. So in my case, I went from living near my family to a city I went to Vancouver from Vancouver Island, and so it wasn't easy access. We didn't have social media. Phone calls cost money to make, long distance calls. And so for newcomers to Canada, you're clearly more isolated. You don't have your support systems and your families, and it is hard to adjust here. It was hard for me. And so we want you to know that there is help if you're feeling these things. Somebody who has explosive outbursts or mood swings where you're always worried about their reactions and how they're going to behave. My children and I would always, we would walk in the door and we would have to sense his behavior as to how we could react. Could we be happy? Did we have to be quiet? Were the children allowed to play and make noise? Those are all signs of unhealthy relationships. Put downs, somebody who is always telling you that you're less, you don't matter. No one's going to listen to you. They're not going to believe you. Those all break us down so that we don't know how to get help. Love bombing. That was a new term for me. And that happens a lot in relationships. So the person will give you lots of attention, spend money on you, maybe take you places or buy you things, and they will make you feel very, very special. So in my case, I was 20 years old. I was naive. I had come from a very fundamental religious background, and it was very patriarchal. So the father was in charge. And so what the man said went, that was law in the household. So that didn't feel unusual to me. But he was the first person who said, "You're beautiful," and made me feel special. But that changed quickly. And it was soon very controlled. And I went from being, "You look beautiful," to, "You have to wear your hair like this. You have to wear makeup. You have to wear these clothes." And if I didn't do the right things, I paid for it, either physically or through intimidation, through yelling or screaming or threats. So gaslighting is a term where basically it comes from a movie about 70 years ago. But the term is gaslighting because the person makes you feel like everything you think is wrong. They flip it on you. So if you say, "Well, why did you come home so late?" Perhaps they'll come back to you with, "What, you don't trust me, you don't believe me," and then they'll get angry at you. So even when you ask rational questions, they flip it to make you feel that you're not okay. Oh, am I talking too fast still for the interpreter? Okay, I'll try to slow down a bit more. In gaslighting, you question yourself. Are you too sensitive? They'll confuse you. It gets hard to make decisions. You're always apologizing when you're not wrong, but you feel like you're wrong. You feel not good enough. It takes away your power to make choices and to ask for help. And you start to believe like you're totally alone, you don't matter, and no one will care. That's what happened to me. I had a career. I did well in the world, but at home was my prison. And I had no ability to make my own choices. I was constantly unhappy. My mental health was very bad. And I lost a lot of confidence. I didn't know how to ask for help. So, talk about my personal experience, but you're new to Canada. And so, what could be different here for you? In Canada, we're all equal, or we're supposed to be. Men and women have equal rights. It doesn't always play out that way in the court system, sadly, but the reality is we do have rights. We consent in a relationship. Abuse, physical, emotional, financial, is not okay. And we call those coercive control, which means there's many levels to violence. So as I mentioned, it doesn't have to just be physical. I didn't understand, even though I was married, that I could say no to my husband. I didn't think I could. And so for much of my relationship, our physical intimacy was not consensual. And that is a level of violence. Emotional, for sure. Financial. I was the one always working. He controlled my money. I was the one taking care of the children, paying the bills, doing the work. But he didn't help me. That's a type of violence and control. We have the right to say no. And if nothing else comes through today, I want you to know you're not alone. There is help. And you can get help without telling the police. If you don't want to call the police, you don't have to. I'm hoping that I'm pausing enough for the interpreters now. So I do apologize. So consent, what does that mean? It means you have an agreement and it's clear and you did it voluntarily. You wanted to do it. Consent has to be freely given. If someone forces you or makes you feel like you have to do something, that's not free consent. Consent can stop. So if something is happening between you and your partner and you want it to stop and you say no, or you just withdraw, you no longer give consent. And you can stop at any time. This is something we really talk to teens about because a lot of young people, young women in particularly, feel like they can't say no. Or because I didn't say no, but I wasn't actively participating, they feel like they consented, but they didn't. And so that's against the law in Canada. If there's any pressure, it's not consent. So saying no, I'm not sure, not now, I'm done. All of those things mean stop. And that applies in your marriage too. And I didn't understand. So consent is voluntary, enthusiastic, specific, and you have to be sober and awake. So if someone gets you drunk or drugs you or assaults you until you're not conscious, that is not consent. And you'll see on here it says Love Shouldn't Hurt, which is a Government of New Brunswick program to raise awareness about healthy, safe relationships and really to let people know that are not in safe relationships what one looks like so that they can get help. And I'm a Love Shouldn't Hurt champion, so I've been trained by them on what are healthy relationships, so I'm allowed to talk to you about that. If anyone wants to learn this to help your community talk to your friends in ways that you'll understand, you can contact the Love Shouldn't Hurt program, and I can give you that information, and you can get help. And you can get help to teach other people. So communication. To communicate, we use clear, respectful language. So if someone is yelling at you and belittling you, demeaning you, calling you names, then that's not clear, respectful language. It's okay to say what you need and what your boundaries are, and you can change those. When we're talking to people, we need to listen to understand, and that doesn't always mean that we have to talk back to them. We just need to listen. And then there's going to be cultural differences, whether you are with someone from your own country and you're in a new country, or if you have a partner from another country, or you've moved here and you have a Canadian partner, there's going to be some misunderstandings culturally. So you can talk about those and explain, and that helps build healthier communication and stronger relationships. If something doesn't feel right, it's not. Trust your instincts. What do you feel inside? Do you feel unsettled, anxious, scared? Then it's not okay. Talk to someone you trust. And if you don't have someone, reach out to someone at the Multicultural Center, or you can call a number called 211. 211 is a free helpline for resource information. So if you don't know who to talk to or where to go, in New Brunswick, 211 will help direct you there. Know that you're not to blame. If someone is abusive or violent to you, it's not because of anything you did. It's their problem. And there is help. So even if you're unsure, and this is what I tell youth, if you don't know if someone physically or sexually assaulted you, but you're wondering, then they probably did. But you can get help, and they'll help you determine what your next steps are. So even if it just feels bad to you, then it's not okay. You deserve safety, respect, and support. And this is for men and women, as well as our children. Some statistics, again, the Love Shouldn't Hurt program. New Brunswick has the highest rate of police reported victims of family and intimate partner violence in the Atlantic provinces. More people are killed by their partners in New Brunswick than the rest of Atlantic Canada. 85% of the police reported spousal homicide are women. So we call that femicide. When you're killed for being a woman or female, that's femicide. 2/3 of the women in New Brunswick were living with their partner. And 70% of the deaths occurred in small towns and rural areas. Now that's easy to understand because New Brunswick doesn't have very many big cities. If you've moved here from another country, You'll know we don't have big cities in New Brunswick. So it is very rural and it's easy for people to hide. One thing I didn't understand was that even though I was the one who was suffering from all of the violence, it did affect my children. I thought I was protecting them. I thought I was keeping them safe. But children who live in a household with violence have lifelong impacts. Anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, even heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, which are not things I would have thought of. Children who witness violence, their reading levels are lower because they're not getting that extra help at home. They don't feel safe asking for help. And I think that that's a big part of it. I know it was for my children. How can you get help? So, like I said, if you feel like what happened wasn't okay or you're not sure, in New Brunswick, all you have to do is call the hospital, any hospital in the province, and tell them, I want to see a SANE, SANE, and that means sexual assault nurse examiner. It doesn't have to be sexual assault. If it's family violence or intimate partner violence, you can call them as well. What's great about this is you don't have to go to the hospital and sit for hours. You don't have to talk to the nurse in triage. You just phone the hospital, tell them I want to see a SANE, SANE, and they'll have someone meet you within an hour at the closest major hospital. So not all the small ones, but the closest major hospital. This nurse here is Lisa, and if you went to Fredericton, she's probably who you would see. She will tell you what she can do to help you. She will give you options. You can have an exam. You can have an exam where they take evidence. And you can report to police if you want. But you don't have to immediately. They can hold the evidence for 6 months. So you have time to think about what you want to do. Community organizations, the Multicultural Center is great. School supports. There's counselors and principals. You can ask for help. And there's crisis lines and newcomer services. So there are places to get help. I'm probably running out of time, so I'll get a bit faster on here. Gender-based violence can be anything. So physical violence, words, actions, control, humiliation, intimidation, coercion. They can deprive you of things, threaten you, or harm another person. In my situation, I went through all of those things, and I finally had to escape. It took me 3 years to actively try to escape. And leaving is the most dangerous time. So if you want to leave, call 211 for help. Call a SANE nurse, or you can call outreach programs. For example, in Fredericton, there's Women's in Transition, and you can go see them, and they'll give you a safe place to stay. After that, if you still need help, there are places like Liberty Lane, and they have what's called second stage housing, which means you've been in the transition house, but you're not ready to go out on your own. And they can set you up in an apartment with counseling, support for you and your children, and help you move forward and get you financial support. In Canada, every 6 days, a woman is killed by her partner. And every 48 hours, a woman or girl dies. So it's very bad here too. And we want everyone to know that they deserve the same equitable support and treatment. So We're Here For You Canada came about because after my last act of violence, where my husband tried to kill me and my children, I went to the hospital and I had the exam. And then after, they had nothing for me. They kept my clothes and they gave me paper underwear and paper booties for my feet and clothes from the lost and found. And it was November. I had no purse, no jacket. I had nothing. So a couple of years ago, I saw a woman back home helping women with comfort kits. And I thought, well, that would have been really helpful. So I started a one-time donation thinking there must be help now. And it had been 17 years since my act of violence. And there still was nothing in hospitals. It's a gap in the healthcare system. So we created comfort kits, and you can see the picture here. It's filled with all sorts of supports and supplies that might be helpful. Shampoo, brush, all your basics, pens, paper, all the things you might need right in that moment. We also have clothing, footwear, and cultural supports. So for Indigenous people, we have these beautiful kits with sacred medicines. For Muslim women, we have hijabs, prayer mats, and prayer beads. And for women of color with textured thick hair, we have just added some items, better brushes, things like that. So we're trying to help everyone that might need it. The main piece of information is that you're welcome there, that it should not be a place where you're worried about racism or cultural barriers. They can call an interpreter. You can have someone with you, and the nurses will help you do that. And you don't have to tell police unless you want to. So every year, we hold a one-day workshop because I learned that the kits aren't enough. They're helping the crisis, but we have to stop it. We have to work together to end gender-based violence. And so each year we have a one-day symposium and we talk about gender-based violence. And this is open to everyone. And you can find more information on our social media pages. So I encourage you to check that out. If you want to come and money is a problem, it's $50 a ticket. Contact me and we can talk about that. So my main messages are you deserve healthy, respectful relationships, and you deserve that in every part of your life. It takes time to learn what's different and how to get help, and that's okay. But we want you to know that support is always available. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Another message we share is don't ask why she didn't leave, but ask why he didn't stop. Because we need to change the narrative. This is not my problem as a woman. It is the problem of the person hurting me. So I'm going to talk a little bit more, but now you can pop questions over. I'm just going to share a couple more things. I know we're getting close to time, but please do ask any questions. If you want to know more about my personal story, which I didn't want to get into too much today because there's so much to talk about, you can look on our social media, or you can check out the podcast or the video, and it's a CBC documentary. It looks like there's a question there, if somebody wants to give that to me.
There's actually no question that popped up for me.
Oh, I see a hand up, sorry.
Oh, it's been up for a while. I think it might have been a mistake.
Okay, no problem.
But Sarah, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, and also we appreciate you sharing your story as well. But yeah, just if anybody has any questions, just pop them into the chat and I can read them out to you, Sarah, whenever.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer them if there are any questions. And I'm sorry, it's hard to slow down my speech. But
no worries.
last thing, so there is the documentary if you want to know more. And last summer, I did a really big thing for someone. I had no voice most of my life. I was 55 when I started sharing my story, and I'm almost 60 now. And I finally wrote down what happened. And the reason I did that is because people say, why didn't you understand it was bad? And that's because so many things happened to me growing up that by the time I was an adult, I was vulnerable. And people who prey on other people look for broken, vulnerable people. And so that's why I shared kind of childhood and teenage situations to help explain, because I wasn't a dumb person. I felt like it, but I learned that I was not. I just was vulnerable and easy prey. So that's my presentation for you, and I really appreciate you guys listening to me, and I hope that that was helpful or informative. I see a couple of comments there. Thank you, Yulia. I do appreciate your comments. Yeah, if there's anything else. How to help a woman who wants to leave the abusive relationship. So that's why I share the information. If you know somebody who's in trouble, talk to them alone. Don't single them out when the person who you think is hurting them is around. Because I wasn't allowed to talk to people alone. And if you isolate the person in a group of people, that might put them in more danger later. So you just have to let the person know you care, you will listen, you will not judge them. Because even though we don't understand all of the levels of control and violence that we're living in, we know it's not okay. And we're embarrassed and ashamed and afraid to ask for help. Give them the 211 number. If it's immediate emergency, call 911. You have rights. Ask for an interpreter. Ask for a support person. If nothing else, get them to the hospital to go see the sane nurse. If you have to lie about why you're taking them to the hospital and you think that that's okay, say it's for another reason, just get them there, because then they can learn what their rights and responsibilities are. The nurse won't make them do anything. The nurse is amazing. She'll tell you everything. She'll walk you through every step, and she'll help you with resources. If you need medicine, she'll give it to you. If you need tests, she'll take them. If you want evidence, she'll take it. And like I said, she can hold it. You don't have to make a decision right that day. And then you will be offered a comfort kit. If you need different clothing, you can get that. We also have gift cards. So if you need to get food or put gas in your car, those aren't always available because we're a small charity. We don't have a lot of money, but we do our best to meet all of the needs at that time. And there's outreach coordinators who can help you create a safety plan. And that's critical because leaving is the most dangerous time. They'll help you make a safety plan. If you're in the Fredericton area, again, there's the Women in Transition, Liberty Lane. They can both do that with you. They can help you with if you want to go to police. They can help you with the court process. And for me, the first time I filed a restraining order was 15 years after I was with him. And that's only because he tried to strangle me, or he was strangling me in front of my children. And I knew it had gone too far because they saw it. And I didn't know that strangulation increases the risk of femicide or homicide by 750%. It took 3 years of actively trying to escape to get free. In the last 2 months, he was stalking me. And I didn't know that was against the law. I just knew it felt bad. I was uncomfortable. I was unsafe. And when the time I finally called the police is when he tried to drive me and my child off the road in traffic. And I didn't call the police, someone else did. And I'm so grateful because I probably still would have been too afraid to call for help. And that was my second restraining order. And both times he breached, which means he didn't follow the conditions and he immediately came at me again. And that increases the levels again. So safety is the most important thing. And feel free to reach out and talk to me if you want to. I know, like I said, I'm not getting deeply into it, but I know that it's upsetting content. Doesn't feel good to hear. But if anyone is going through anything similar, there is help. And if you're not, I'm so happy for you. And I want you to take the thoughts about healthy relationships and improve your relationship with those strategies. Teach them to your children. Let them know that nothing, country, culture, religion, nothing comes before their safety. And I didn't understand that. So I want to help you understand that. And I really want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And you can follow us. We're here for you, Canada.ca. We love to hear from people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that. Does anybody else have any questions before she goes?
If you do, you can always reach out to me. I'm easy to find.
Do you have, I don't know if you already shared your email address, but do you mind typing it in the chat box?
Let me do that right now. And my email. And all of our social media is We're Here For You Canada. So if you look that up. And I'll just quickly explain why we're Canada, not New Brunswick. And that's because when we started doing this, I realized if you're in the middle of New Brunswick, it's 3 hours to another province or another country. And when you run a nonprofit in a province, you're often restricted on who you help. And I never want to say no to anybody. So that's why we went national. So now we're in BC and I'm flying to Victoria to expand there this week. We're in Nova Scotia, and at the end of May, we'll be in Newfoundland. And then PEI. So our goal is every hospital in Canada. So, like I said, I'm almost 60 and I'm like, I only have like 20 years. I have a lot of work to do. So if you want to help, please reach out.
Thank you, Sarah. So she included her website as well as email address in the chat. So if there are no questions, I think we're good to end things for the day. Thank you everybody for joining. And thank you, Sarah, so much for your presentation.
You have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye.
you, you too. Bye, everyone.